Hi, I'm Adrienne Eaton, the Dean at the School of Management and Labor Relations at Rutgers University, the State University of New Jersey, and the home of the Institute for the Study of Employee Ownership and Profit Sharing. I'm happy to welcome you to the fourth annual Private Equity and Employee Share Ownership Symposium. I continue to be delighted that this institute has added this rather unique conference to its portfolio of events for each year. This year, we've made a special effort to reach out to family offices, private credit, and mezzanine investors. You'll also be hearing about some very interesting transactions today, among other things. So I'll just close again by welcoming you and thanking Joe Blasi, the director of the Institute, and Chris Michael for all of his work on organizing today's symposium.
Hello. I'm Joseph Blasi. I'm director of the Institute for the Study of Employee Ownership and Profit Sharing here at Rutgers. Delighted to welcome you to our private equity and employee share ownership symposium. And I just want to give a few introductory remarks. The Institute has come together over the last 15 years, and we're working on empirical research on employee ownership and profit sharing, all forms of shares. We have a policy analysis unit, a large fellowship program, providing research fellowships to scholars around the world. And we organize the two leading academic conferences on this subject. In addition, we have a really interesting other unit called the Curriculum Library for Employee Ownership that provides case studies, videos, lecture material, and syllabi to business school and social sciences professors. But I wanted to just say something by means of introduction, because here we are. This actually is Infrastructure Week, and President Biden is announcing the infrastructure bill. And I was thinking a little bit about the connection between what we're doing here today and infrastructure. Well, there's kind of two connections that I'm thinking about. When we started this conference, we had it for the first 2 years in person. And thank you very much to Citicorp, to Citi, for supporting that 2 years of in-person part of this conference. And now the last two conferences have been virtual. When we had it in person, we actually had it at the New York Palace Hotel in what is called the Villard Mansions. And the Villard Mansions are very relevant to infrastructure, because Henry Villard was the president and a key owner of the Northern Pacific Railroad that ran from Minnesota to the Pacific Northwest. And he was part of the Gilded Age, and he built his mansions on Park Avenue as part of the near Park Avenue as part of the Gilded Age. And they've been taken into, you'll see them on the right of the Palace Hotel. They've been made part of the Palace Hotel. And when we used to have our private equity employer share ownership conferences there, I would say that this time we want to do it differently and have more broad-based equity participation and profit sharing. And so I was thinking about those comments. But the second reason this ties to infrastructure is actually there were some attempts to do it differently. In fact, the Chicago and Northwest Railroad was a majority employee owned for many years before it was bought out. It was not a failing company, but before it was bought out by the Blackstone Group in 1988. And then we have another experiment very early on in history, which is in the late 1800s and early 1900s. But this was one of the first railroads in the United States, which was the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad. They got into a big discussion on the issue of social cohesion and broad-based equity participation and profit sharing. And they tried at some point in time a broad-based profit sharing plan, but that ran into all of the lack of social cohesion that happened at the end of the Gilded Age and never went forward. But there is, interestingly enough, there is a railroad in the western part of Pennsylvania, which has profit sharing as part of its corporate culture. So I thought I would just make a few comments about infrastructure and about maybe doing it differently, and maybe also make the point that with all these infrastructure projects, it might be a time to talk in a larger way about the relevance of employee equity participation and profit sharing. Well, let me just welcome you to the conference, and let me say that I want to pass the baton now to Chris Michael, Professor Chris Michael, who's the managing director of the Institute, and who has really done everything he could to make this conference a success and to organize it and to work with all of you. We're just delighted that Chris has joined us at Rutgers and will be directing the private equity effort here for the years to come, and will be serving as managing director of our institute. So thank you so much. I look forward to the sessions.
Welcome everyone to our 4th annual meeting. I'd like to thank Adrian and Joseph again for allowing me the opportunity to chair this event. I am particularly pleased that we have so many family offices and mezzanine firms and private credit funds joining us this year. And I'd just like to say a few words to introduce the kind of sort of technical framework for our event. Of course, you've got some links above to the Institute's website and LinkedIn page. We also encourage you to sign up to our email list. The email list is really only used to alert you to when this event is happening next year. So don't be afraid to sign up there. Next to the video monitor, you should see information about whoever's speaking in any particular session, but you also have the opportunity to click into the chat, and it shouldn't be too difficult to use that as a live chat feature to interact with speakers while their pre-recorded video is airing, so that many, if not all, many of the speakers should be live with us during the event to answer questions in the chat. It's also a note taking feature as well, if you'd like to use that. If you have any problems at all with the conference platform, the tried and true strategy of refreshing your browser or clicking back to the home page tends to work. So we will have live Zoom Q&A breakout groups at the end of the day, and I'll be returning to you at the end of the day to speak a little bit more about how you will access that. But for now, I'm going to turn you over to our keynote speaker for the day. John Miscioni has worked as an investment banker for over 40 years with private businesses and employee-owned firms. He's currently a board director of 4 employee-owned companies in an executive role, and he's also a non-executive chairman of a 5th company. So with that, I'll turn it over to John, and then after that, you'll get launched into the main content for today. Thank you so much again for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you again next year as well. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to introduce the videos that we're going to see today about private capital investment in employee-owned companies. The expansion of private capital into the employee-owned market is a plus. The market has always had a lot of short-term capital, but has had a need for longer-term investment. And I think you'll see from the presentations we're going to hear today that there is a lot of money available in different forms to help employee-owned companies grow and become more sustainable for the long run. Before we get to the videos, my job is to just give a brief overview of the world of private equity and how it's evolved over the years. Believe it or not, it's only been in existence for as an institutional form of investment for about 45 years. And over that period of time, the market has expanded and diversified so that today there are very, very many sources of private capital that invest in a variety of securities issued by private companies and which provide solutions for all types of companies in all types of industries, healthy, growing, and distressed. If we go back to the beginning, the private capital world originally was focused on private equity. And when we talk about private equity and private capital, what we really are talking about is investments in securities which don't trade on liquid markets. The critical idea behind this was there could be a premium realized by investors by having securities which are illiquid and which they have to hold for longer periods of time. And those securities, therefore, could provide possibly a better return to investors than securities which were traded on the open markets. So people looked at premiums, basically incremental risk premiums for the lack of liquidity and also for the riskiness of some of the structures, securities invested in by private capital providers. The market started out as an equity market. The equity market then expanded in terms of enterprise value. And over the years, companies with smaller enterprise values had access to the market. The market for credit private capital began to explode really in mid 2007, 8, because as you recall, the banking industry was decimated by the economy and the crash, the mortgage crash, and the traditional institutional sources of capital for private companies, primarily banks, pulled back. And at that point in time, a variety of investors who used to invest in equity securities began investing in debt securities and of private companies, and in fact created a huge credit market as an alternative market to the institutional bank market. As the markets have evolved, there's a lot of competition. Everybody wants to have a proprietary source of transactions, and in addition, they're looking for niches that they can be expert in, and niches which are less known to others. Part of our job today is to let everyone see the niche of lending into employee-owned companies and hopefully understand how it's done, and also, more importantly, for you to understand why it's attractive. The critical point about employee companies is that, generally speaking, these companies are in their game, if you will, for the long run. The point being is that the market provides an opportunity for people who have a long-term investment horizon, if you will, to participate in growing companies and healthy companies that have a tax advantage. And you'll learn more in the presentations about the tax benefits that an employee-owned company have that helps them to shelter income and make returns to investors more secure. While it's taken a while for the market to be found, I'm happy to tell you that, and we'll see today, that there are a good number of differentiated investors who find the market very interesting and a somewhat unknown market to invest in. This is good news for the investors and great news for employee-owned companies that are looking for sources of capital that will help them sustain and grow their businesses for the long term. Now I'm going to introduce the conversations recorded on video that will give you a broad picture of how people are investing in sponsoring employee-owned companies. Our first presentation will be from KKR, a managing director at KKR, who's part of the Industrials Group and who works in part of the group founded by Pete Stavros that makes employee participation a key part of its investment strategy. It's a very large company, KKR, and it is fascinating that they have a silo that in fact brings employees into equity participation. Our second presentation will be with Social Capital Partners. They are a Canadian firm which has a deep interest in expanding employee ownership, and they will talk with a new investor, a long-term investor, which is also very interested in employee ownership and sponsoring transactions in the market. Next, we'll listen to Mosaic Capital. Mosaic Capital has been providing participating debt capital to employee-owned companies for over a decade. It has many transactions that have been successful and have helped sponsor employee ownership. And in this presentation, they will be talking about a new employee-owned situation that they created with the help of a credit fund from a major Wall Street investment house. After Mosaic, we'll hear from Granite Partners and John Kober of Morgan Lewis. Granite Partners is a holding company that invests in individual subsidiary companies that are part or whole employee-owned. It's the first corporate investment vehicle that I've ever seen in the market, and it's a very interesting strategy. Last, we'll have a presentation put together by McDermott, Will and Emery, Calteus, which is a mezzanine and structured equity debt fund, and an investment banker from Chartwell, who will talk about a restructuring of an employee's ownership situation and how the lawyers, the bankers, and the investor work together to create an employee-owned company in a new form. After that, we'll have an interview with Adam Blumenthal, who is one of the originators of investing private capital in employee-owned companies.